Hello and welcome back to the PSD to HTML flat design build. In this lesson, we're going to move on to our next section, which is this featured services section. We have a simple two-column setup with an image, a title, and a paragraph. You'll notice our images and our title text are all centered and the paragraph is left aligned. But we'll get to the arrangement of those things once we get into our CSS. For now, we're going to create a simple two-column setup. So we'll create a section element for this entire section, including both columns, and then we'll create two divs, and we'll use those divs to define the columns. So we'll give them a class of column half, and we'll define in our CSS how wide that column is going to be. And then inside that div with a class of column half, we'll enter in all of our HTML. So let's jump back into TextMate here. And all the changes we make in this particular lesson will be saved in the Site05 folder. So we've created our feature slider, and that ends right here. And this closing section tag here is for our main content. So let's go ahead and put a comment there for that as well, just so that we know for sure what we're closing there. We're closing the main content section. So what we do next for this next section that we're about to create needs to go inside this main content. We're still going to put all the rest of our content inside this main content section. So just before that closing section tag, we'll create a new line break there. And let's create a new section for our featured services. So we'll create a section element here with a class of feature-services. And then we'll go ahead and skip a couple lines and put our closing section class there. And let's go ahead and put a comment here as well to indicate that we're closing the feature services section. So then we need two columns inside this feature services section, and I'm going to create those columns using divs. So we'll create our first div here, and we'll give it a class of column half, and then we'll skip a couple lines and put our closing div tag, and then we'll do it again. So div class equals column half. Now these two divs are actually going to look very similar, so let's actually get rid of this second one for now. Let's fill out the first one, then we'll copy and paste it and change the things we need to change. Now if we go back to our Photoshop file, you'll notice we have two different colored backgrounds here. The first background is the same green color that we're using for the blog menu item, and we've already created a CSS class for that. Our second background color is just a darker shade of green. So we haven't created a background class for that shade of green, but we can create one here. So let's go back into our code. And if you remember, if we go back up to our menu up here, the blog menu item has a class of BG green, and we're going to use that class to define the background for that menu item, and we're going to color it green. So we'll use that same BG green class here. So let's scroll back down to the bottom, and this is our first column here, this first div with the class of column half. I'm just going to give it another class of BG-green. That will give it the same green background color. Then inside that div, again, we have three items. We have an image, we're going to use an H2 tag for the heading text, and then we have a short paragraph. So let's create our image tag first. And this first one is for web and graphic design. So I'm going to give it an alt attribute of web and graphic design. And then we'll give it a source attribute. And we're going to point to that monitor PNG file that we created. And that's in the IMG folder /monitor.PNG. And there's the image. So then we'll go to the next line and we'll create our H2 tag. And then inside the H2, if we go back to our Photoshop file, we're going to have web and graphic design, and we're using the ampersand there. And also want that to be a link. So let's go back to our page here. And we have our H2 tag. We'll also put an anchor tag, href. I'm just going to put an href of pound. Obviously, instead of pound, you would link it to whatever page it's supposed to link to, which would be the web and graphic design page. But inside that link, we're going to type web, and then we're going to type the HTML element for ampersand, which is ampersand AMP semicolon, and then graphic design. Then we'll close our anchor tag and close our H2 tag. Then we have a paragraph. And I'm going to use some lorem ipsum text here. So we'll jump into Chrome, and I'm going to go to my go-to lorem ipsum site, loremipsum.net, and I'll just grab a sentence here, copy that, go back to our HTML here and paste it, and then we'll put our closing paragraph tag. Then I'm going to put a simple read more link below it, and I'm going to put that inside a paragraph as well. So we'll create another anchor tag, href of pound, and inside that we're going to say read more, and then a couple of right angle brackets, and then our closing anchor tag. Now we don't want to use our angle brackets here for our HTML. Instead, we're going to use the element ampersand GT semicolon, which is the greater than symbol. So we'll do that twice, ampersand GT semicolon again. And then at the end of that, after our closing anchor tag, we'll have our closing paragraph tag. So let's make sure that looks okay. We'll save that and jump into our browser and refresh the page for the Site 5 folder. And we'll scroll down to the bottom, and there we go. And we see that those GT symbols give us that right angle bracket or the greater than sign there. So let's jump back into our code. And also you'll notice that there's a big empty space here where our image is, but that image is all in white. And if we put it on a white background, we won't be able to see it. So we'll just have to trust that it's there for now, and later on we'll change the background color and make it look right. So let's go back to that div there, this entire column half div, opening and closing, and we'll just copy that, go to the next line and paste it. So now we have two instances of that same column, and we're going to create a new class for our background color here, because again, we haven't used this background color before, and we're just going to call it BG dark-green. And then instead of web and graphic design, we're going to be doing video production here, and instead of image/monitor.png, we're going to do camera.png, and then again here we're going to change this text to video production as well. And just so that we can test this with two different paragraph sizes here, I'm going to double the size of this paragraph by highlighting all the text inside it, copying it, and then pasting it. So this paragraph is twice as long as the paragraph before it. And once we get into styling this, I'll explain why I did that. But there we go. We have two different columns here contained within these divs with a class of column half. And that takes care of our feature services section. So let's save our file and we'll move on to the next video. Thank you for watching.